Hi, and welcome to the Campaign Builder series on the It's a Mimic podcast. I'm Adam.
And I'm Dan.
And we're working with you to build a campaign to get your characters from level 1 to level 20.
We know that every table is different, and so is every Dungeon Master. So please take what you want from each of these episodes and use, adapt, and throw away whatever you need to in order to make things work for your campaign.
We have no idea what our party will be, so we'll be designing encounters for an assumed party of the following 5 archetypes: Warrior, Priest, Mage, Criminal, and Outdoorsman.
The characters will be leveling up as we go, but for now we're at level 2, and the party has just been granted some leeway by the local authorities, and the reputation as folk heroes is spreading. Let's get to building.
So, Dan, look, we're talking about folk heroes. Why? Why is heroism so important in Dungeons & Dragons? Why is this something that we inject into every game, even the ones where we're anti-heroes or evil villains, or we run an evil campaign? There's still acts of heroics. Why is that so important?
It's the point of the game. Like, we so want to feel like heroes. We want that accomplishment. We want that feeling like we are the main protagonists of our stories, right? Like, we like feeling that feeling of power, and we like feeling like what we do matters in the day to day. And for some of us who are, you might be a normal foot soldier on the job site, or you're running your life and it's become a routine, or you're stuck in that routine of life. Sometimes it's good to kind of break away and hit that fantasy.
I agree with you 100%, but you just yourself finished a multi-year campaign where you were not the hero. How did that feel?
There were moments of heroism. I wouldn't say I wasn't the hero all the time, but it still felt good. It's probably the first campaign in quite a long time where the entire ethos of the campaign was to be morally ambiguous, and maybe we're not necessarily the good guys, but we've got a mission and there's an antagonist and we are fighting the antagonist. It's when you start defining the campaign by protagonist and antagonist rather than good guys and bad guys. And it still felt good, man. Like, it still felt like there was a complete story arc. We had deep characters who were flawed, and it really reinforced the opinion that that the flaws of a character are what make a character great. But there were still moments where I felt like a hero. There were still moments where I felt like I was the one in control of what was going on, even though quite often Lockie was by far the least in control person on the table.
Yeah, just for a little bit of context here, you guys started off in a campaign that was, where did you start off at, level 12? Around there?
I think we were 11.
11 maybe? Yeah. You guys were put into kind of a gritty, urban, but like on the water setting. There was a lot of water and ships, but also like dirty cities and villages and whatnot all the way along the riverbanks. You guys were dealing with all of the time, but your number one goal was to find your daughter. Not only did you find her, but she died pregnant in your arms. She was stabbed through the stomach. There was also, you guys were directly responsible.
That old chestnut.
Yeah, that you guys were directly responsible for the Feywild being destroyed as well. There were entire blood plagues that were hitting that you were powerless to stop. And there were superpower beings, gods walking the earth, just wrecking house. You guys would walk into a town, and by the time that you left, that town would be destroyed. And any NPC you met in that town would be dead, right? You guys saw the idea of there being almost like trade embargoes against the food coming in and out of the realm, and you didn't even really deal with that. You just kind of walked on by that and let it run its own course. You took a tour through insanity in Demogorgon's mind, right? Like, there were a number of really dark and upsetting things that happened all the way through this. We had not just beloved NPCs die, but also characters, like PCs were killed off. And we had one player leave, and their player character ended up getting relegated into the background and just kind of died off screen, right? There was a lot of anti-heroic moments. There was a lot of villainy. We had to come up with a system for drug use in this campaign as well, as you explored that and saw really the negative aspects to it.
Yep.
So how did you feel heroic? What were the moments in and amongst these where you were able to find these moments of heroism amongst, all the mud and dirt and shit that you guys were just mired in?
Well, I mean, as we gained power, as we gained status in the world, we were taking out bigger and bigger threats. And for me, I know I like playing D&D to be a hero. Like, that's one of the things I play the game for. And I believe even at one point I came up to you and I'm like, dude, like, I think it was just after the whole my daughter getting killed pregnant in my arms. You asked, so how are you feeling the campaign's going? I refused to speak to you for like a week after that session. I was just like, no, I'm done. I need a week. And we finally caught up and you're like, so what's going on? I'm like, I don't know, man. I just miss being a hero. I miss it. And I mean, there were some things like, we broke into some chick's house, killed her sleeping maid, and then, sprayed her blood across her bedroom in a rather short encounter, but very bloody encounter. But we did that because she had an iron grip on the city that she was running, right? And we thought in our heads, oh, we're helping to liberate this town. It was the same thing with taking out that one, vampire lord who ran the city of undead. Like, we took him out as, like, maybe we were thinking we were resistance fighters, right? Like, we were morally ambiguous, but, like, there were times where we would be trying to do the good thing and bad things would just happen, right? Because we didn't think it through well enough, or we didn't really think about what the consequences of our actions really truly would be. So that's where we found the minor heroism was in our own perceptions of what was going on. And then those perceptions would be dashed, and we were made to realize what our actions were doing. And then at some point, some of us around the table acknowledged those actions, accepted those actions, and we're like, all right, well, I guess we're just the bad guys now. Right. And they played these characters to be the bad guys, and it was things like, oh, I want to raise my evil god to this plane. Right. Like that level of bad guy, like what would normally be a big bad evil guy in a campaign, one of our players was. I had kind of finished my story arc and I was searching for purpose after we had rescued my daughter, in quotations. She became a revenant. But you're like, Dan, don't worry about it. There's a plan. And then I got to try my best to be a hero after I had played an entire campaign where I very much wasn't. I was addled with drugs. I was a philanderer. I did all of these things in the campaign that were bad and evil, and then had to try to do my best to rectify that. And then in the end became a vampire lord. So, hey, it all works out, I guess.
Yeah, it was really interesting to watch you guys descend. This was the campaign that it's the closest I've ever seen a fall from grace, right? Even the necromancer in the party was very much coming out to go on adventures and do the right thing. And yeah, I'm going to raise zombies while I do it. But I mean, I'm just quirky and weird that way. And that did turn into I'm just going to embrace the evil. She turned to me with the session left and said, how can I become a lich? Right. And like, that is the kind of descent, that fall from grace that we were looking for. Your fall happened before everybody else's, and then you tried for the redemption arc. And I would say that you semi-succeeded. It was a complicated, realistic campaign in the way, I mean, look, you were a gnome running around fighting vampires and talking to hags and stuff. Like, it's not realistic. But the idea that there are consequences, you can't just murder the guy in the tavern and walk away. Right? Like, there's shit coming for you. There's always a reaction to any action that you have. And so, did these reactions make you feel heroic at all when they were positive? Because you said that, you would try to accomplish something and then realize that it wasn't that way, and that's where the moral ambiguity comes from, and it would it would drag you down. So there were times where you would get items or NPCs or save someone or accomplish your mission, or one of the cities that you sank was the city of undead. That whole city was destroyed because you guys just had enough of it. It was time for this evil shit to go, right? Even though you have a necromancer in your party, it was time to get rid of the city of dead. So did it make a big difference to get boons and rewards?
Very much did. I mean, it helped me feel like the goal of the character, or the progression of the character, was still moving forward. One of the things about becoming heroes, and I mean, becoming heroes is a very umbrella statement. It is really a pyramid almost. Like, there is a gradient scale of what kind of hero you are. Like, you go, not to quote my arguably favorite Disney movie, you have to go from zero to hero.
That's Bambi, right?
No, that's a different kind of hero in that one. Because the hunter's the hero, right?
You're a bad person.
No, it's Hercules. I freaking love the movie. It kind of shows the hero's journey of being something more than just, all right, I've saved this one person, now everyone loves me, right? Like, there's a gradient scale to reputation and to reverence, and to a community's reverence towards the player. And different boons and bounties and things like that were a really good way of establishing kind of what stage of the hero's journey I was on, right? And yes, my character was depraved and a shell of a person who was dealing with some incredibly heavy concepts like loss and drug use and almost a dissociative aspect to him, as he had lost his entire family and his entire reason, like his entire moral compass had been removed from him. Even though we were wrestling with those concepts, having the boons and bounties given to me when we would do good things were kind of like a silver lining, where my character would be like, okay, maybe I can do right here. Maybe I can right this ship. And then I would proceed to flip it and drown. But I mean, it gave me hope, right? As a character who was relatively hopeless.
Yeah, I would say that a major part of, you said the hero's journey, right? And I'm a big believer in trying to plot out the hero's journey as much as possible, as much as you possibly can in a tabletop role-playing game where you have very little control over your players. But there is the concept of moving forward, and you may return to your initial state. That's part of the hero's journey, is the return home being changed and different. But there is that sense of moving forward, of accomplishment. And we've spoken in the past on the show, a few episodes ago, we talked about rewarding players and all the different kinds of rewards that you can hand out. We also had an entire episode about unique rewards to hand out on the other podcast. But what's interesting here is that we don't really talk about the heroic nature that comes along with getting that magic sword, right? Of having that moment of stepping up and getting all of these great new things, even if it's a title. And that's it. You get you are a countess. And congratulations, you have land and you've got holdings and you have enough money to have investments now. Like, there is a definite step up in the world that you can feel when you're playing D&D, and when you don't have that, you just feel like some schlub on his back foot reacting over and over and over again. And one of the things that I'm not sure if it clicked with you, but when I was running that campaign that we were just talking about, and I was determined to run you guys through the shit, because I wanted to have a sequel to it, where you guys are heroes. And I wanted to have the contrast. And I really put you guys through your paces on this. And when you started to complain that it didn't feel heroic, one of the things that I started doing immediately after that, even though the story kept getting darker and darker, you all died at the end of that. No one walked away from that story. And you didn't even really win. You just put the whole big bad evil guy's plans on pause. And yet it felt good because I started handing out rewards again. I had stopped doing that because I wanted you guys to feel Like, okay, I wanted you guys to deal with your resource management a little bit. We're talking high level. You guys had a whole bunch of items that you had stockpiled and a whole whack of NPCs. And I'm like, look, you guys have the resources to get through this. You don't need more stuff. But then it started to feel bad because you weren't accomplishing anything. Sure, you're checking off beats of a story, but you're not getting what you need. So I would hand stuff out, but I'd be very clear as well. Like, hey, you can do this, but here are your boundaries. Just because you're a countess doesn't mean you can tell the prince what to do. Just because you have this new magic sword doesn't mean that it can't be broken, right? And so I was really, really clear about what the risk was and what your capabilities were. And I thought that it was really important to be clear about it, especially in a setting like Dungeons and Dragons, where the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
If you give someone the ability to, you can teleport at will, it's fine, whatever. But you don't tell them how far or how often, right? You can say at will, meaning, with ease. They're just, every campaign is ruined now. Like, that is so freaking overpowered. And yet I saw that handed out at a table one time. I wanted to talk really quickly about the idea of boundaries with heroism, because that heroism needs to consistently be growing. You are right. It's about moving forward. It is about consistently taking that next step down the road until the journey is finished.
And I think far too often I see D&D campaigns blow up when that hero's journey has been either over advanced or flipped back upon itself, and now your character is like starting from zero and with no warning, right? Like, it is the DM's job to build into that hero's journey, and it's the player's job to respond to it and to go. But it needs to happen at a gradual pace. It can't just be, all right, you were a peasant, now you're a king.
Yeah, because where do you go from there, right? Like, how many people have played in high level D&D games where they're like, hey, we're gonna go fight a god, and they walk around up until level 19, where they are still just murder hobos out in the road. They've got a little bit more going on for them. Maybe they have a ship that they're on, an airship maybe, or they have their own castle, or they've got their own lich who's an arch nemesis, whatnot. But suddenly they turn to level 20, like, all right, guys, that's it. Off to go fight the god. And they get on their horses and they ride off, and then they fight a god next session. Right? Where it's just, that's not heroism. For a lot of people, I think it feels like it would be, because that's what, Sleeping Beauty taught us. The hero gets on the horse, rides off, fights a dragon, there we go, right? But that's not how that doesn't feel fulfilling, right? And so I really think that having some limitations to the rewards and the boons and the loot that you hand out allows you space to grow. And so what we're going to talk about today we're level 2, right? We're a few sessions in at this point, but this is just level 2. We're wrapping up level 2, but we're a tenth of the way through this story. And it's time to feel like heroes, because we've been making them run around and do errands, and they had an exorcism, and there was a riot, and they've kind of been on their back foot a lot of the time here. And Lachlan's Lot has had their number up until the last session, right? So they've been kind of losing. Every step forward also comes with a step back, right? And they've been kind of spinning their wheels in place. So, how do we have them get some reward, but also not let it spiral the campaign out of control too early?
Yeah.
So
exactly, yeah.
So this is something that I think about all the time, is campaign balance. But when people talk about balance, they think about, is everyone around the table balanced, or are the monsters balanced against the good guys? And I think about, is level 5 appropriately balanced against level 15 as well? And I think that when it comes down to things like heroism and titles and your abilities, what you can do in the world, and I don't mean mechanically, but like, do you have access into these secret back rooms now? Are you on the up and up with some mages and they want to do you a favor, right? Getting more and more of these special accommodations made for you. This is what makes you feel like a hero. I'm no longer an average guy. So we talked a little bit about boons and about some, how we need to keep it and the boundaries need to keep them kind of in check a little bit. So when you're dealing with new folk heroes, Dan, do you have a couple of unique rewards or unique new things that a folk hero specifically, and I don't mean the Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition background folk hero, right? But like the archetype of the folk hero that people recognize in the street and they, tell stories of this person and whatnot. Do you have a couple of things that they might get from this, where it's not just a favor that you get because you escorted a guy and you finished a quest, right?
Well, I mean, I do, but I do want to stress, you actually just kind of hit something on the head and got me thinking. There is a difference between a boon and a favor. And when, like we talked about in the previous section, you need to have some sort of balance to your boons and your boundaries. This is one of those things where a boon is something that will hopefully last your character the whole campaign, if not for quite a few levels, and be something that they can use more than, a handful of times. A favor is a one-time thing, and you have to understand that when you're kind of handing these out to your players. And at level 2, which is where we're sitting, you have to be mitigated in your boons as well. So I've got a couple boons that are specifically designated for like a new folk hero, so a low level character.
Okay, all right, let's roll.
Okay. Oh shit! You're going first.
Really? I'm going first with a 3. Oh, poor Dan. Poor Dan. The first one that comes to mind for me is you've just honestly in our campaign we've been talking about law, and we had a trial and the court system and whatnot. But I think now you're part of a merchant's guild. Now is the time when I'm going to hand out traveling papers, but not just average traveling papers. These are endorsed by the city or the township that you're in. They're essentially notarized. This is, hey, this is not just a person or a group that has been that lives in the city, but these are people we're proud of. These are officials. Let them into your town. They will do good things for you.
I have for one of my boons here is kind of the same thing. I like the idea of giving rank or giving some sort of authority, because that's one of the things we've been building into them over the past few sessions is some sort of authority, and now they need a rank that signifies that. So I would have them deputized. Even maybe just some members of the party, but at least someone in the party is gonna become deputized within the either local militia or the town's guardship, where they now have the authority to kind of break up and arrest people without having, some drunken villagers say, hey, you can't do this. They can now.
Yeah, look, I like that a lot. I like the idea of them becoming authority figures even at a low stage, because honestly, most of your NPCs are tier 1, right? In their level of power, right? They're early. By the time that you're tier 4, you're dwarfing even a sheriff, right? So when it comes to the idea of getting, maybe not even being deputized, but at least having people say, you know what, you are in our reserves. If the city is under attack, we're going to come get you, right? Like, if we've got a problem, you're going to be our point of contact with the Merchants Guild now, right? Just that idea that you are a little bit more official, or a lot more official than you were before. You're not running a town, you don't own a keep, but you have some sway, I guess, with your opinion moving forward. All right, so my next one, and this is going to be tied directly to my guild, but I want a guild boon as well. This is going to really keep you focused on moving forward. It's not going to have really anything to do mechanically with the world at all. And even from a flavor standpoint, it's a neat little thing, but it's going to open up opportunities for role-playing options within the guild later, because the city itself will be thankful enough that you have intervened that they are going to give the guild 10% off on tariffs. It really means nothing, but think how happy the guild members are going to be, the merchants, the people like the person that runs the guild, who we haven't even met yet. We've got Tremblay, who runs our chapter house, and he'll be thrilled as well, but now there's starting to be little rumblings. You're starting to hear more when you end up walking through a town. or through the town square and whatnot, it's going to be a merchant's like, oh, I don't like the looks of them. And someone else just elbows them and says, hey, those are the guys that made it, so it only cost this much for you to sell your wares in town.
Yeah, no, I really like that because it also gives your party a little bit of perspective on their actions having an effect on the broader political scene or the broader guild scene or power scene or whatever it is. Like you said, I really like this because they're not they're not directly being targeted for this boon, but this boon is being gifted to their organization because of their actions. It's something, like you said, they'll never really see the effects of, but it will definitely make their position within the guild better.
Yeah, and they will feel happier getting it too. That's the other thing. Like, it feels like a big heroic win without actually giving them a big heroic win. So from a DM standpoint, the illusion of progress is sometimes as important as progress itself.
So for my final little boon here, part of me wanted to give them like a gift or reward, and I think that fits in a different section. So I instead went with a more group uniting kind of boon, and for me it was every single group needs kind of a headquarters. Every single group needs a place they call home, and like they've got the guild house. And they've got their rooms in the guild house that are permanent and all that. Yeah. But, they should have a place that they could go to, outside of that they could even develop and whatnot. But I mean, they're level 2. So I want to kind of get their foot in the door here, and I want to give them free, room and board at their local watering hole for exturation. I don't even think there needs to be an end time on this, but the innkeeper is so grateful to them that they have given them, one of the biggest suites that they can use for their entire party at no cost whenever they want to stay there. They would get discounted drinks, not free drinks, so let's not go crazy, but they'd get discounted drinks and free food while staying there. And I would also make this probably not the shiniest, cleanest, most expensive room in the inn. It's definitely one of the early tier rooms, but it's big enough for your entire party to rest after a night of being out on the town and whatnot. It's definitely a place where you could even have your party hang up notes and have their own little, like, who is Pepe da Silva wall with little red twine leading from notes and postings. It's a place where they could put that, where they know it won't get cleaned up or observed or like a place that's safe and secure. This is what I would give them after all of the work they've done at level 2. And it would also kind of instill in the party it's not the most secure place. So eventually we want a bigger place, because every single adventuring party, without fail, through all of time, wants their own friggin' keep. And it's far too early to give someone a keep, but it's not too early to plant that seed of, hey, you want your own place that you can modify and build it into yourself.
I like that. I think that providing the opportunity to have services, not necessarily goods, because that's a direct reward here. You got a brand new shiny suit of armor, right?
Yeah.
And even I said traveling papers earlier. Those are goods, but they provide a service. They give opportunity. I like it being services because when you're not there, you don't actually get to reap the benefits of it. You still have a place back home. Even if it's not, if you're like, hey, look, the chapter house is good enough, I don't need this, then there's free stabling at the stables, right? Or yeah. Hey, you are part of a merchant's guild and you get a free booth now where your artificer can sell what they want, right? Your craftsman, because there's always a blacksmith in every D&D party, right? Someone is a dwarf who just happens to be a blacksmith, right? Now they can sell their own stuff. If they spend their downtime building things, they can turn a profit. They get a business license. They get whatever it is. There's a service. So I like the idea of it being the tavern because it's a staple. It's recognizable. It's a good first boon to give them, and then let them kind of spread their wings from there. So we've talked about some positive things that you get for being folk heroes, but I mean, you know me, I like to make things complex. what are some negatives, Dan? What are the downsides of there being this new level of fame as you're walking around? So let's roll initiative on this one again. I've got a couple if you've got a couple as well. So
okay. Oh, seriously?
What'd you get?
I did one better than last time.
Okay, well, I will go first again then.
That's a 2, by the way. It's one better than the one I had last round.
So I guess the first thing that I would say, the big negative, is that rumors are going to spread. And while that may seem like a good thing about your guys, the rumors can be spread by bad people too. They can get thrown completely out of proportion. It's like, oh, hey, did you guys hear? These are the guys that stopped the riot. And you walk into a town 3 villages away. You walk into a village, and there's a little roadside, and they're like, oh, those are the guys that stopped the riot. And like, yeah, we did. Look at us. Like, oh, free drinks for you. Tell us a story of how you murdered that giant. And there was no giant. But now suddenly you have to come up with this story. And there's going to be this negative repercussion now from these rumors that are being spread. You do not have anonymity. The next time that you need to sneak through town, someone is going to recognize you. And you can't just put on sunglasses and a ball cap, right? And pretend you're Mel Gibson walking through Hollywood. You've got to like legitimately get a disguise kit or use a spell or something to be able to get out and infiltrate. Now, this is really going to screw up a rogue becoming this famous. And I would like to see that your edgelord character sitting in the corner, your criminal, is going to really have a problem keeping up with their assassin's contacts if they are super freaking famous.
No, I really like this. And one of the ones I was going to bring up was going to be this idea of you are now famous. And what I would say to add on to it is just to reinforce the idea that stories are living things. They have the ability to grow and change and expand in ways that the people involved in the story might not have any way to control. So like you showing up at a town and them already knowing your story, and then you try to correct them and be like, no, there was no giant. They're like, no. You see, my second cousin was there and they wouldn't lie to me. There was a giant. You're telling me there wasn't a giant? Well, then you're the liar, not my second cousin, which is completely something the party cannot control. So I like the idea that now not only does your party have their names out and get the good benefits of that, now they have to deal with people getting their story wrong and being unwilling to change their opinions on the story because stories grow and change on their own, even in ways the party might not expect or want.
Yeah, I like the idea too of you guys walking into a tavern and they say, oh, hey, look, it's them. This must be them. And the warrior walks in last, and they stop. They're about to give you free stuff. And then they see the warrior and go, wait a minute. I heard you were 6'8". No, guys, this isn't them. Never mind. You guys don't get the discount.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Okay, for mine, I'm gonna kind of build on what you said, Adam, with the fame and how people will get the story wrong, but and people understanding and recognizing them. I'm putting a target on the players. They've become folk heroes. You don't become folk heroes without at least making some sort of enemy, and it could be an enemy you don't know about. So they're level 2, so I'm not going to be hitting them hard with this, but it's definitely going to be a plot thread where they could go, where they are now the target of a group of con men. And the boon I give them is going to be probably an NPC that at this level seems helpful, but there's something weird about them. And then some of their stuff might end up going missing, or some of their information might get out to an enemy, and they'll have to wonder, how did they know we were going to attack in this way? And it's because of this shady NPC that I want to give them.
I really like that. I like the idea of this con man, this dubious ne'er-do-well getting into the mix, and I like the idea of them having to deal with this. Maybe this is the first subtle betrayal. I wouldn't have this guy get super chummy with them for the next 6 sessions and then all of a sudden stab him in the back and leave one of them for dead and run up. No, this is just someone who like, yeah, tell me the story while he's picking your pockets.
Yeah.
Right? This is level 2 hijinks that you're getting up to, right? So
Yes.
this isn't, you're not making a brand new arch nemesis here, right? It could lead to that, right? This con man could work for the Thieves Guild, right? And you could end up, knocking out the con man. He goes back with a story about these heroes roughed me up and threatened the whole Thieves Guild. Now the Thieves Guild's out to get you, right? It could lead to that, but it doesn't necessarily have to. The other thing that I think is worth mentioning as well is that there are what I affectionately like to refer to as star fuckers. And these are people that see, if you're not familiar with the term, a star fucker is someone who sees a celebrity and says, oh, I need to be a part of that. And they'll just go out of their way to work their way into your life. They will do everything in their power to leech off of your fame. Your bard character, your minstrel, now has people applying to play backup for them, right? There's just a lot of shit going on. Your warrior now is squire stepping forward, trying to get some more from them. And I think that having these people, not necessarily con man, but people just trying to leech off of their good name, suddenly the guild numbers swell. But it's a bunch of really ineffective, ridiculous people. This guy over here is a dung merchant. The problem is, we think that sometimes when no one's looking, he eats the dung, right? And, do you really want to be associated with someone like that? Fun little NPC, but that's going to hurt your social standing. You just got this big boon. You are now famous. Are you going to be dragged down by, what's his face? But that ties right into my next one, actually. Now, I don't know if you remember this, Dan. Back when we did our episode where we built the guild, we had an NPC that we built. He was a clerk. He was ineffectual and ridiculous, and he was already a member of the guild. He was a half-orc named Oscar.
Yeah.
And we don't know at this point, we discussed, but we don't know at this point whether or not he's a double agent, or he's going to double-cross them in the long haul. We don't know if this is going to be a major plot point character, but here's my negative thing. Now you have this guy that's following you around. The guild order says you have to babysit him. Take him on his next adventure. Show him the ropes. Get him out in the world. Teach him what you need to, and he's going to record what you guys are up to. Now you have the guild watching you closer, and you have someone who is making your life harder. And you can't just get rid of them. That's the other thing, too, is even if they ditch, if they tie him up and leave him, on the side of the road, and they just ride away, 3 days later, when they wake up at a roadside tavern, he's sitting there going, guys, that was a hilarious prank. I'm so glad that I finally caught up with you.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a guy that you cannot shake. And he is going to auto-fail stealth checks. He is going to misread every conversation. And he is going to tie up the horses to each other. Uh-oh. Now we don't have horses. So, this guy is going to be a royal pain in the ass. And I think that over time, your players will get to turn this NPC into someone who is a very positive member of their party. But their group of 5 just became a group of 6. And to start with, this guy's kind of a bumbling freaking idiot.
No, I really like that. It also, even if it's not necessarily a member of the guild, I mean, the way we'll do it is we'll, in our campaign, we're given this member of the guild will be that, but in your campaigns, it could be a orphan, or it could be I know in our last campaign, we got a Kenku child that we were suddenly responsible for. And in some instances, this is going to become the heart of the party. I know in other campaigns we've ran, we had a little goblin who was a transformed horse that got transformed into a goblin. He was
permanently polymorphed into a goblin and did not understand what goblin life was.
Yeah, so we had this sweet little goblin that would follow us around everywhere, and for us as players around the table, we would literally chant that if Yormi dies, we riot. And you as the DM knew that if you ever did anything bad to Yormi, or if he died, you'd have a full-on mutiny at the table, right? That's how beloved this character was. So, I mean, but Yormi was level 2 when we were all level 8?
Oh, there was a major, like, babysitting. And keep in mind, too, that we ran across him at level 8, and we thought he was a bad guy, and my character straight up tried to murder him at the beginning, and did not want to take him along. Goblins are evil. He is a goblin, therefore he's evil. I can't believe we're doing this. Right? And so there was a downside to taking this helpless, pathetic little pile of sympathy with us.
Yeah. But, I mean, the good side is we ended up really building some camaraderie around the table because we all held the opinion that if the army dies, we riot. So if our fun little NPC, who's like a cute defenseless ex of some sort, whereas X is the variable, not like an ex-wife, but like this cute defenseless creature, and we need to protect it. Now your party's getting together, but it is added responsibility. So I love it. For my last one here, your party's become folk heroes. People are looking up to them. People are looking to them for help, maybe even giving them little gifts or things like that. One of the things I would definitely do is I've said that you were targeted by a malicious organization as well. And we've said that there are negative aspects to the fame, but I would say for all the good publicity your characters are getting, some of that is going to be bad publicity as well. And not only do they have to deal with like maybe a direct assault from some sort of con man or even a direct organization that now is targeting them other than Lachlan's Lot, which we've built into our campaign. But there's going to be a group of people who are going to be spreading rumors or even speaking truths about some of the bad things their party has done. If we are going to look into our campaign, let's look at like the priesthood, who now won't trust these characters because you had to put down a major threat, and some of the religious might not have been okay with that, right? Or at least how your party ended up doing it.
Look, you know that your players decided to rob a shopkeeper at level 1, right? Like that's what players do. So nothing came of that until now. Now you're famous, and that shopkeeper showed up and said, "Look, those are the guys. They did it. Arrest them."
And now your party's misdeeds that they've done when they were just kind of farting around at the beginning of the campaign are going to start to come out as well, because these people have more to gain from your downfall because you are higher up. So this is the people who like throw their names in with other tragedies in hoping, or these class action lawsuits that might not have ever actually befallen any of this stuff, but they're just trying to reap some of the reward even, and party in with the people who dislike your party enough where they're going to try to sully your name. And now not only you're running into rumors that are wrong, you're running into rumors that are maliciously misinforming everybody.
We've talked about the upside and the downside of what it takes to be a folk hero, what happens, how your life is going to change. And we've given the DMs out there a little bit of an idea of how to add a level of complexity or depth to this new title, which at surface level really means nothing, right? You can say out loud, almost from a meta perspective, "Oh, so you guys are like folk heroes now," right? And they'll feel really good about themselves. They'll feel even better when they start to get more rewards. They'll feel even worse, and that'll get taken away from them when bad stuff starts to happen. But as they deal with it, they're still progressing. Even though there are negative consequences, they're still moving the story forward. And so they're able to see some repercussions of their heroic deeds, either for good or for ill, and this will solidify them and bring them close together as a party as well. By the end of level 2, before you get your big level 3 boost, which most gaming systems now these days aim for level 3 to 5, gets your big power boost, your first one, right? And that's when in 5th edition, most of the classes, not all of them, but most of them, get their subclass options to kick in, right? It's at this point where we want our guys to be a cohesive unit, right? We're, 8 sessions in now? They should have gotten past their initial distrust because I am an edgelord in the corner, right? And now they're working together. They've had common goals, and through the dynamic encounters that we've established, they're able to move forward and experience the teamwork and the camaraderie that we want them to, because they, like, shit has been out of control and they've had to think on their feet. They've been on their back foot some of the time. They've been reactionary sometime, and now they've won. But let's look at our campaign specifically now. So they just won the trial, and Lachlan's lot had their leaders make a big move, and the leaders escaped justice. And there's a significant number of people out in Lachlan's lot. Like, this is a full guild, right? It's not a small little shop of 4 people. There's got to be a good solid 20 people now that are now the most wanted in our city of Sandspit. What do we do? What do we do with this new sense of heroism, and what goes on with Lachlan's lot as well? How are we going to see all of this play out, where the established guild that was our biggest nemesis is now in ruins, the reputation in tatters? And we, who had just been this plucky little upstart from the discount magic item shop, is now full of this great reputation. What are some dynamic encounters that we can run into in Sandspit in the direct fallout after the civil unrest? And the gods have gone missing and people are still reeling from it, but some heroes have stepped forward and they've made a name for themselves. Dan, as is tradition, you and I have each created 3 unique dynamic encounters for this exact scenario. Let's go through what we picked and why. Do you want to roll initiative? Okay.
Yeah, hey, that's better. That's a 14.
Well, it looks like it was my turn to get a 2. So, all right. It's all you, Dan. Take us away.
So, as we're starting off, I have a role-playing to combat encounter in which a beloved local NPC who was grievously hurt during the raiding and riots has sent for these new local heroes. I would almost say that this guy's probably a shopkeeper that is either loosely affiliated with the Merchants Guild, if not at all affiliated. Like, I don't want them to be a direct guild member, but it's somebody that maybe has some sort of pull, and is a beloved on the town level NPC, has sent for the party to help protect them in a upcoming shady business deal. And my encounter here is this deal is going to sour midway through when Lachlan's lot reps bust in to break up the deal, probably because these Lachlan lot reps could be the other side of the table, or are protectors for the other side of the table who recognize the party and refuse to do the deal with them around. This is a role-playing to combat encounter as you get to sit and watch kind of a shady business deal go down, and then it's a full-on combat, and I would say like a partially burned out warehouse somewhere, right? And then you're having to fight through these Lachlan lots and get your contact, who's a beloved local NPC, out.
Even if they're not beloved, they're the person that's going to pay you at the end of it, right? Like, you can, it doesn't have to be altruistic. You can be in it for the money. Hey, look, we're famous now. What job are we going to take, right?
The only reason why I would make this guy a bit of a, like, local, I almost wanted to put down, like, local celebrity. Like, he's a figurehead of the community. Because he is then going to, once you get through, he's vouching for your party moving forward as well, and he could give this a bit more oomph to the reputation and a little bit more gas to the reputation gain that your party is getting during all of this.
All right, so for my first one, I wanted to make it really, really simple. As you guys are out looking around and you are in town, you're kind of surveying what the damage is done. Maybe you're going back to the temple. Your player's going to have ideas about where they want to go after this, what they want to do next. They're going to assume that they've got some downtime, but they won't. Because your party is going to get jumped by Lachlan's lot, which is out for revenge. So they're going to be desperate, and they're going to send some heavy bruisers, and they're going to be too powerful for your party to take on by themselves. This is going to be a combat to combat, because things are going to get really out of control here. Because as your guys start to get backed into a corner, passers-by and civilians will see what's happening and recognize the fact that the bad guys are coming after the new guys that just saved the temple. They just saved the market square, and they've let people into the town like refugees, and these are the good guys, and they're in trouble. And random people are going to show up, and they're going to pick up items, and they're going to come to your defense. And now you're going to have a bunch of NPCs, which you're going to have to babysit. And maybe this gets even more complicated from there, where some ex-cops that were a little bit shady that came out in, like, the town's guard were outed as being corrupt during the trial process. They are pissed off that they're not going to get the money. They join Lachlan's lot. And now you've got a little bit of a mob clash in the middle of the streets. So I like the idea of the fact that the riot is not done. There's no looting. There's no current violence, but it's a powder keg still, right? People's tensions are high. And the same way that you're having dealings and meetings in warehouses that are burned out, I'm having fights in the street because people are desperate still. Their way of life has been interrupted, and the gods are not there to help.
So I like to build on the fact that the entire city has been through something that is going to change the culture of the city for a long term. Some of it's probably still smoldering, some of it's probably still burning, and a lot of people are going to be going to these taverns and places of vice to be able to drown their sorrows in whatever it is. And what I want for my encounter, I have a combat to role-playing encounter where the party stumbles upon a barroom brawl as tensions have finally met their broken point and broke. As they're out wandering the city, like you've mentioned, they're out doing their errands, thinking they have some downtime. They come upon a barroom brawl, and halfway through, they come to realize that the reason why the barroom is brawling is there is one of the priests that kind of fell into this mind control state during the temple event, that is now hiding behind the bar. He had tried to apologize, but some people in the bar had family members that were either killed or maimed or will never be the same because of what happened at the temple. So a fight broke out and got out of control, and this guy managed to hide behind the bar, and now you've got to get him out while he is trying to apologize to your party and make amends to people in the room as well while dealing with his own guilt. So you've got an NPC who doesn't want to fight. He feels like he's done enough damage, but he's the cause of the fight, and your party has to kind of rectify this situation.
I like that. Maybe even he is the priest, if you manage to save him, that was possessed. And people don't understand that he was not in control. Yep.
Yeah, there's so many little layers of reality you could inject into this guy to make him seem more sympathetic, yeah. And I mean, let's be completely honest. The people who are in the fight, in the brawl, they could be sympathetic characters as well, like farmers or merchants whose forces were, or whose families were permanently, irrevocably altered because of all the events that have been happening.
All right, so for my second one here, this one is going to require a little bit more prep work from the DM, but you're going to be able to kind of sit back and see where this goes. I want to deal with some downtime here. Once you've gotten back to the chapter house, once you have taken your boots off and you have wiped the blood off of your knuckles and you have restored your spell slots, it is time to wake up, kind of take stock of what's going on around you, and you're going to realize that people have come to you. There's a list of people, and I will provide a literal list of people with some very simple descriptions and basic motivation. They need help. They're scared. They're desperate. And you guys helped before. Can you help again, please? This is a real moment of heroism for your guys, but I'd be very clear and transparent as a DM. This is where I talk about boundaries. You can't help everyone. Pick and choose the people. And maybe this list that I hand out isn't written on one piece of paper. Maybe it's written on a handful of scraps of paper. And I hand out one and I say, are you interested in this? And they say, no, move on to the next one. And then I bring forward another one. And there's some really juicy stuff later on that maybe they want to wait for, but that means that they've got to turn people down. So give them the opportunity to help others, and then you'll get small little role play scenarios. They'll have to make a single check or something in order to be able to get through this, but the downtime will become alive and vibrant, and they're going to make more contacts. You can write down who really loves them for what they've done and who resents them for not helping.
So for my final encounter here, I have an uncomfortable role-playing to role-playing encounter. And this is one of those opportunities where I might target the criminal or one of the other archetypes that might be a little bit more agoraphobic or doesn't like people or whatever it is, because I would have a local widow or someone who has been severely like a sad character to draw on the compassion of the party, comes forward and thanks them for their actions in saving her or her family or whatnot, weeping. And I want this to be in a public area, in like a tavern or in the middle of the street or something like that. And offers to give the party, I don't know, like, this was my ex-husband's most beloved suit jacket or something along those lines, like something that is not going to be even really meaningful to the party necessarily, but is like this grand gesture on the widow's behalf towards this party, because she's so thankful for the work they did at protecting her and her family. And this is going to draw the attention of other people around who are going to start crowding around. And this is why I kind of want to target the criminal or the people who don't want the fame.
The outdoorsman getting surrounded by people has got to make him uncomfortable.
Yeah, right. I want to have that little bit of uncomfort as people are walking around like, yeah, no, they also did this and they also did this. And I want to use this as an opportunity to kind of share with the party the level of effect their actions have caused in the more microcosm of things. So like the more personal effects that have happened from a large scale disaster that has befallen the city in recent memory. And I want to do that with this. And some of these things the party might realize were not them that did it. And if they attempt to take the reward for something that they didn't actually do, this could be another thread later on where this negativity comes in and is like, wait, I thought it was them initially and I gave them this, family heirloom item, but then I found out it wasn't, but they took the heirloom anyways and are refusing to give it back to me, these scumbags. Right. And it flips that narrative as well a little bit. So I would have this kind of crowd of people singing the praises of the party.
So what kind of encounter is
that
this?
Just keeps on getting added onto. This is a role-playing to role-playing encounter as you first deal with the widow, and she gets so loud and so overt in her actions that it draws in more and more and more people.
I like this because it really sets you up for a lot of role-playing opportunities in the future. And you can establish kind of a mob of people that you can refer to later. You'd be like, remember, this was the guy that gave you the whatever, right? We also talked last episode about the idea of there being customs. We listed out a lot of different kinds of law and order and whatnot. And maybe this is something as simple as you give 3 silver pieces to someone who has saved your livelihood somehow. There's a custom here that's given. And maybe it's not even silver. Maybe it's blue gems, and the gems are useless, except that if you get enough of them, you make a scabbard out of them, or you wear these gems encrusted upon your belt so people can see you and whatnot. And then later on, if you fall from grace, people can come and take the gems from your belt. It's something like that, right?
Like it could be like prized high quality furs or gems or insignias of some sort, right? Like little like rune chits that you now hang from your armor.
I like the idea of there being little coats of arms from families, and this is the custom, is if they give you a little patch that you wear on your cloak, then you can trade these patches in for favors or for room and board or for whatever. in the future, right? And so there are these just a custom that this widow steps forward and gives you a big one, and then other people come out and they say, you know, I'm already indebted to these people over here, but here's a small favor, here's a small token, and you're sewing it into your cloak, and this is a cloak that you wear within Sandspit.
Oh, even better, because I know I'm targeting the outdoorsman or the criminal or something else like that. Make this thing like little bells that if they don't wear while they're in Sandspit, they will see it as an affront to them because it's this custom. So you have to wear them. But I'm giving it to the people who need a stealth and their little bells or like chimes.
That's just evil. That is just mean, and I love it. Okay, so for my last one, this one is really simple and it's going to come out of left field as your guys are sitting there saying, okay, what do we do next? There's been rumors that Lachlan's Lot is gearing up to leave. We've heard nothing from them in a little bit, and then all of a sudden an NPC with some sort of magical ability bursts into the guild house and starts screaming for them, come quick. There's some sort of danger that is going to happen. I can sense that there's an ill omen. I need you. Shit is getting out of control. Something is going to happen. Whether it is a monster that is suddenly summoned into a town square, or it is a magical explosion, or whatever it is Lachlan's Lot creating a diversion while they are trying to escape. And so this is an exploration, this is a role-playing exploration, because this is this person coming in and telling you, we have to go, and catch you completely off guard. I would almost interrupt downtime with this. Or in the middle of another encounter, you just suddenly someone kicks that door open and says, you have to come quick. And now you have to find whatever the source of this thing is. And I say it's to exploration and not necessarily combat, because it could just be a massive trap or a glowing rune that's going to explode or something, right? You've got to disarm this somehow. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. There's combat or there's consequences, whatever it is. But there's a straight up act of terrorism, and one person in town knows it's going to happen, and they come to you, not the town guard, because you're the new heroes.
Yeah. No, I really like this because it really builds into the fact that the reputation of your group being the group that gets shit done is going to be both a positive and a negative effect, because what happens to the town guard who's on your side? You might have been deputized by some of them. But what happens when they find out that people are subverting the actual legal authority to go deal with threats to the town? I like this. I really like the role play opportunities here.
I also like the idea of throwing in a ticking clock into an otherwise calm, like even though you're breaking up bar fights and you're getting jumped in the street, we're returning to a sense of peace. And it really feels that way, and I don't want that to happen. The gods are missing, and we are still dealing with the discovery of that. Okay, let alone the ripple effect from there. We'll deal with that in far later episodes and later sessions, but for now, people are still shocked and afraid. It's only been a couple of days. What is still going on out there? And there are people that will, like, including Lachlan's Lot. These are our bad guys. There are people out there that are going to manipulate the situation for their own benefit. Okay, you sexy heroes. You've flexed your muscles and you've cast your spells, and it's time for a break. This will let us adapt to our new level of fame, but it's also going to help us keep our egos in check a little bit. So, we're going to break, and let's tune in next week when we discuss how we go about building NPCs.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the It's a Mimic Campaign Builder series. You can find us at www.itsamimic.com and on iTunes, Spotify, and most podcast catchers. We're also available on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and more, and would love to hear your thoughts on how you would use this episode in your own homebrew campaigns. I'm Dan.
And I am the heroic Adam.
And we'll be back with more prep work next week. Fuck.
Okay, bye.